Welcome everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying their first CleoCon. Who loved the keynote and all the AI stuff? All right, very exciting. Great to meet you all. My name's Nick Anderson. I'm the SVP of Customer Success for Clio. So any challenges you have with adoption, my whole role is to help customers be successful using our products. And we're very excited to talk today with our great panel today about an unforgettable service and unmatched success. And I'd like to introduce a couple of folks. First, we got Amy from Burkholtz Law and Tony from Monarch Law. So would love for you both to introduce yourself.
Sure, I'll go first, I guess. Tony Interlandi from Monarch Law. I handle all types of employment matters, whether that's for individuals or employers. My practice is primarily geared towards individuals, employers, so about 70% of my work is discrimination, retaliation, sexual harassment, wage and hour. My office is in Berlin, Connecticut, and I am wearing my Clio socks.
All right. I'm not even wearing my Clio socks.
Come on.
That's great.
I missed out on the Clio socks. My name is Amy Pankratz. I work at Burkholtz Law Office in Mankato, Minnesota. We are a general practice firm with 6 attorneys. I'm the business manager there, and I work with a lot of the finance and the software of Clio.
Awesome. And you have how many members in your firm?
I have 18.
18. Okay. Awesome. So you're about at our mid-market zone. So very excited today to talk about what an unforgettable and unmatched success looks like. So we're going to talk about 3 things today. One, how do you create a really smooth intake process, and what does that do for the client experience? 2, how do you think about best practices in client communication across the lifecycle? Obviously, there's a lot of important points for that. And then finally is, how do you have a perfect client exit or client transition? So lots of different things within the client lifecycle. But before we dive into that, just a quick poll of the audience, if you want to raise your hands. How many folks are familiar with the term Net Promoter Score or customer experience? Everybody? Okay. All right. How many people have, so for those of you who don't know, Net Promoter Score is a measure of customer experience, and you either rate from plus 100 to minus 100 based off of your overall score. How many folks in the air have a NPS rating of 50 or higher? Wow. Usually there's no one when I raise it. Nobody has it that high. That's like Apple and like very high NPS folks. Show of hands here. What do you think the average NPS for lawyers is? So let's start with 50 or higher. Anybody? No. 25? 0? Negative? No. Okay. So it's actually plus 25. So lawyers actually do have a very positive NPS. NPS is a really important measure because it defines how often a customer is likely to recommend you to friends and family or to another client. And so that's going to infuse kind of part of the talks that we have today. But I wanted to start with just an overall question. How do you think about the client experience in your law firm?
So in my firm, I think it's not rocket science, right? Like you want to treat people the way you want to be treated. So I think about, if you're going to a car dealership or a doctor's office, the way you want to be treated is really important. So we take that at our firm. And, on the beginning part of the client communication, when they're calling us, maybe there's some people here to do real estate transactions, and those clients are happy, maybe because they're selling their house or buying a new home. But by and large, I think most clients who are coming to us, whether that's through email or phone calls or whatever, are upset, they're depressed, they're sad, bad things are happening, they're worried, they're concerned. And so it's really, being there for them, being empathetic, being responsive, and following up is key, in my opinion.
Nice speech.
Thank you.
Yeah, empathy is key here.
Yeah. we strive that really hard at Burkholz's, that making sure that a person sees that we see them as a person. They're not just a case file or just a matter on our files. So it's the communication. We try to meet them where they're at on how we need to communicate with them. And we try to help them understand that we understand that they don't come to us on a good day. They always come to us on a bad day. So having the understanding of that is very important at Burkholz Law.
And I'm sure, as in particular, you work a lot within the back office and finances. You probably have some happy customers calling sometimes.
I get all the great customers calling me. They're all really happy to call me on billing. So it's taking the time to listen to them and finding out maybe it was just a misunderstanding of the transaction, and we need to maybe get the attorney involved to have them explain it. Or maybe it's just the amount of the bill, and I need to work with them to come up with a payment plan so that way they can still go on throughout their day.
Great. So I'd love to transition here. Now that we know a little bit about what customer experience means for you at your firm, I'd like to talk about the start of that, which really, for all lawyers, it begins with the intake process. So Tony, maybe we start with you, but I'd love to just kind of understand how you've used technology to help with your intake process and just what it looks like today.
Yeah, so it's really important, in my opinion, to examine how you triage intakes, right? So like there are a lot of programs out there that you can use and set up workflows and see what that looks like visually, and then talk to your team about it. We get people who, phone calls for sure, emails. We use Lex Reception when we have overflow calls, and then those messages get put into Clio Grow as like a new lead. And so then we have to figure out from there, how are we going to respond? But we get them from all different sources. And like I was saying earlier, being responsive is key. Like you don't want somebody to be sitting as a new lead, a potential new client, and it's weeks before you respond to them, right? I'm sure no one here does that, and please don't if you do. But like super important, get back to them right away and then figure out what's going on, and then you can go from there. And then specifically with Clio Grow, we are really utilizing over the last 2 years, and we've perfected it, and we always review it, our intake process, and specifically automated workflows. And then we set up as a step 2, a checklist for our staff for follow-up. So being responsive is huge, like I said earlier. And then the follow-up is really important. You not only do you not want to respond, take a long time to respond, but you also want to follow up, right? Like I know I was talking to some attendees, and they were talking about when they send a representation agreement out, and their staff has to call and figure out, hey, did you get this? Is it in your junk email? So doing the follow-up is key. And then again, empathy is important, because what I do, for employment discrimination, retaliation, sexual harassment, I oftentimes have to deliver bad news, when I talk to these people, because they don't have a case. And so I think, when you're declining a case in the beginning, it's really important to have some empathy there. And if it is a case that we're willing to take, then we move them along the pipeline in Clio Grow to an automated email that sends out a representation agreement that they could sign. And it's super easy because it's electronic, and we're off to the races.
And this is the intake flow that you set up.
Yeah, so this is a screenshot of the beginning process. And you can see it on the board. Yeah, so once we have them set up as a quick intake in Clio Grow, it's really just 2 clicks. It's a step 1, which is this automated workflow, and then the step 2 is a checklist, like I said before. And we refine this, like we look at it constantly and try to perfect it. But right now, it's really great. It's working smooth.
That's great. And then Amy, what does your firm do? Maybe 2-part question. What does your firm do in terms of intake and process using technology? And then 2, maybe I see this question, but anything exciting from the keynote that you're interested in trying?
So we're a general practice. So when our cold calls come in, we need a kind of a structured process so we can get consistency. So in Clio Grow, we created a generalized questionnaire That will help initiate conversation and get the information that we need to gather so we can pass it on to our attorneys. But also when we're using Clio Grow, we set up matter stages. They include the questionnaire, attorney assignments, appointments, sending documents. Within each one of those, we have email template communications with the client. So we can stay in contact with them, let them know what is happening kind of in their journey so they don't get lost before they actually become a potential client or before they become a client of ours. I'm really excited in the AI to kind of get in there and dig with some of the new AI stuff coming out to see how I can enhance what we already have just to bring it to the next level and keep it going forward.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited about it. We have a lot of like chat features and other things that will hopefully help the intake process and bring about some new capabilities. We're very excited about that. Well, that's great. Well, so why don't we transition a little bit? Obviously, I've heard a lot also about communication and how consistent that is in the process here. So communication, obviously the hallmark of a great customer experience. Would love to talk to you about some of the avenues and just how do you actually communicate with your customers using traditional or technology, but we'll have to walk through that.
Want to go first?
Sure. So we in Clio Grow set up questionnaires that will allow us to send them out once they're our client to gather information. So that's our intake questionnaires. So when we do petitions and affidavits, we have it set up to send out to them. We also have our email is integrated with Clio. This is a cool feature because in the inbox, it puts subfolders of your Clio clients already there, so your email will stay organized. But it also puts it into the communication tab of the matter on Clio. So you have the transparency and organization there. We use the text message through Clio, and we also use the client portal. And to initiate that, we send a welcome message to them. We introduce our legal assistant. We talk about their attorney again. And then we also introduce the billing personnel. Currently, we are in process of starting a status check-in or a pulse survey throughout the time of their file. So we can touch base with them to see how we're doing, if there's something that we need to work on, anything to help improve us throughout the time. So we do all of that, the check-in survey, we do that through Clio Grow.
Great. And then Tony, how does your firm approach this?
Yeah, so I think you said earlier, meeting clients where they're at. So it starts for us at the intake form. We ask clients what's their preferred method of contact, right? Because not everyone is in front of their computer or live in their email like I do. A lot of people like Nick like to text, and there's everything in between. So got to nail that down and figure out what is the client's preferred method of contact. And then that goes to being flexible, right? So now you're flexible, you are going to meet the clients where they're at. And I think Amy was saying, constant contact updates. For us, it's super important. Like we'll have checklists in Clio Manage that will remind staff to send a status update email. Maybe it's 30 days for a certain kind of case, 60 days out. But clients in my experience, especially at the end when we talk to clients, they really appreciate that, like they're not just a file and then we forgot about them and they never heard from us until, there's like something important that came up. We're giving them updates and we're also asking for updates, right? Because, employment law, it's really important if the client found a new job. If they did, where are they working? How much are they making, right? Did they mitigate their damages? So we could do that through text. We use Falcon, which integrates with Clio Manage, client portal in Clio Manage. I love that because now when clients upload, photos or documents, it's all in one place, and then it integrates with OneDrive. So we have those documents there as well. And then of course, traditional email is really important. So, for us, being flexible, meeting the client where they're at, seeing what their preferred method of contact is, and then just having that, constant update, checking in, letting them know what's going on. And maybe I'm jumping ahead a little, but the AI feature where it will let you, or not let you, but it will send an email to the client, something is filed or something happens in your case, and then the AI and Clio Manage will automatically draft an email for you to review to send to the client. I think is huge. It's a huge time saver.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things you talked about are really interesting here because you are. It sounds like you are crafting the communication in the preferred channel by the customer, and I think one of the things to date, the way you described, it's like it sounds like it's also a lot. It's really good for the customer, but it's probably a lot of work.
It is, yeah, because and I should have said this before. So I'm basically a solo. I have 4 staff. We used to be a small firm. My partner and I split about a year ago or so. It's a lot of work for staff.
Yeah.
And knowing the different. I mean, we have the in our notes in Clio Manage for each matter what the preferred method of contact is, but still, there's templates in the text message platform that we use. There's templates in Outlook that they all have to use and know how to use.
Yeah, and that I can imagine that's a heavy burden on a lot of folks, and it's hard to keep track of everything. So, ultimately, I think one of the things Clio's trying to do is figure out how do we take some of the burden off of the people, allow them to do some of the more difficult things, and then how does software and technology, whether it's ours or whatever you're using, is enabling sort of what we call the system of action and recommend what the next motion is instead of having to always be on top of it and follow through. So hopefully things like that allow a better client experience. And I think communications, obviously super important. I'm really excited to see that you both integrate and keep that all housed within Clio, which is really exciting. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the intake at the beginning. We talked a little bit about client communications through. Obviously, that's not the end of the life cycle. You have to transition and actually exit from the client or wrap up a case. So I'd love to just understand how you think about that process.
Yeah, I mean, from the lawyer's perspective, I guess up here on the panel, most of the cases you especially as a litigator, want them to be a happy ending. But regardless, there's a closing letter, right? A closing letter is going to let the client know we appreciate them, we appreciate the opportunity. Whatever you can do to convey that they're part of like your family, right? Like part of your law firm family going forward. And we also do have a link in whether it's a letter, sometimes it's, again, going to the preferred method of contact. Sometimes it's a closing email, sometimes it's a letter. We don't do closing letters via text, but we provide a link to give a Google review. So I'm really excited to see that one little click button request review that we saw in Jack's presentation today. Because that's going to be really time efficient, but starts with a closing letter for us. And then what we started doing beginning of the year, I guess, is about 30 days after the closing letter goes out, I have these little cards and it's just like a watermark on the back. It says, thank you. And then I handwrite a note. We have like a little piece of paper. Basically, we just print and then cut it with like an old school paper cutter that has a link, a short link to our Google form where we collect net promoter scores. And so we send that out 30 days after and, essentially thanking again for the opportunity, letting them know they're part of the family. The closing letter gives more detail, about their files, if they should ever need us for anything like that. And that's kind of the exit. But sometimes there's a settlement and they're coming to pick up a check, which is a great time for everyone. And then you were handing them the letter there. And then, or at a trial, when you win a trial, it's awesome. And, maybe you go out for dinner with your client or something like that.
And I'd love to maybe share a little bit of the story that we talked about earlier on what is the impact to the client on here, and if they brought you anything in return.
Yeah, sure. So I've been using Clio for 10 plus years. I started when it was just me by myself using Clio. The first Clio con I came to was in San Diego. And so, I've really incorporated that into my business. So I had a client who was a family and consumer science teacher in the Waterbury public school system in Connecticut. and like a home economics teacher, and she had an age discrimination case, and she came, aboard as a client in 2019. So it was kind of the evolution of us using Clio and all the different, capabilities it had. And she was actually a big time texter. So we were texting a lot, giving her updates along the way. And she did use the client portal to upload documents. But at the end, we had a trial. So we had a trial last November, the beginning of November, and we won. So it was a jury trial. She won her age discrimination claim. She was really excited. We actually did go out. I didn't tell you this part. We went out for a drink. And there was an older gentleman there, and he was hitting on her. It was actually very funny. And the guy had to like tell him to stop.
Different.
He was drunk. Yeah. But during the course of just having her as part of our family, as a client, she learned things about me. I learned things about her, the downtime when there's jury selection and we're sitting there together talking, or downtime during a trial. And so she discovered that I love pumpkin pie and that I've been known to eat a whole pumpkin pie by myself. And it's the pumpkin pie season right now, so I'm excited about that. But after trial, she actually came to the office and brought two things. She brought, unsolicited, a brownie cookie thing that she baked for her grandkids, and a pumpkin pie. And it was awesome, and she was really appreciative of everything we did for her, and it was great. And I ate pretty much the half of that pie that day in the office. And then I sent that card out. We actually started doing it with her in December. So I sent a card just thanking her again. And then right before Christmas, she came back to the office with another pumpkin pie for me to, bring to Christmas or holiday parties or whatever. So that was really awesome. And she still keeps in contact with us. She's doing great. So yeah,
That's great. You have great client experience if they're giving you pumpkin pies. So
the key.
awesome. Well, Amy, tell me a little about your client exit. I know you actually I believe you send surveys out.
Yes.
Using Grow?
Yes. So we do the closing letter, the thank you, the summary case. We email and mail it. But we just started about 45 days ago through Clio Grow. I send out a file review assessment. It's kind of a survey on how did we do. And I think there's like 10 questions on there. At the bottom of it, it just says, would you give us a referral? And would you also give us a Google review? Sometimes I think the Google reviews get missed. So if they answer yes on that, I'm really excited with the AI now in that program that I can tag that Google review in there and send it to them right away, hoping that maybe that will catch them again because their schedules are busy and maybe it's gotten lost in their shuffle. Maybe we can catch it. I also really love the idea of the attorneys sending the cards afterwards in about 30 days. So that will have to be something I take back.
Try it.
Yeah, there's. I love the physical card touch here. You can also obviously send, email marketing or follow-up campaigns as well that you can set up here. What's been the impact? I'm curious. What's been the impact on the lawyers in your firm on once you started sending out these feedback emails on their cases?
So actually, I've just started to get them back. So we haven't actually had an attorney meeting. So for me to go over the surveys with them to see how they're doing and what's going on.
Okay, awesome. But they're aware that it's going, and so
Yes.
they're understanding that feedback. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Very interesting. We'll have to find out more about that. Awesome. And then, what I think what's also super exciting is I know the words exit are up on the screen on here, but a lot of this is not really an exit, but it's more like an ongoing relationship. But how do you end it? But I really like the concept of how do you use technology to do, NPS or customer experience surveys to get, sort of this continuous improvement lens going through the organization. I think that's really key. So awesome. So lots of exciting things happening at ClioCon this far. I think from the keynote that we listened to earlier, is there anything top of mind for you for customer experience that you want to leave here and go out and try, or either demo, somewhere here at ClioCon, or talk to somebody? What was like top of mind for you?
Yeah, with regard to like the topic of this discussion, client, service, providing exceptional customer service. All those automated tools that are available now or that will be available through AI that will help you do that more, efficiently and effectively is key. So like the automated email, like when something gets filed and then the email is prepared, I think that's awesome because clients, they really do want to know. Like I've talked to a lot of clients and they're like, wow, like you guys, it was a little excessive. Actually sometimes complaints like you don't have to send me an email when they file a motion for extension of time to respond to discovery. Like I don't need that, but stuff like that. And then that one click of a button to get a Google review, request review is awesome, right? Because it'll go out. I'm assuming it'll go out by email, but that's great because now my staff doesn't have to like, okay, and now I got to go into Outlook. I have to get the template, tweak it and send it. They could do it right from Clio because they're pretty much in Clio all day long. So I think those two for me are really important as it relates to this topic.
Great.
Yeah.
And for somebody and for folks who aren't using a lot of different technology features and functions around either grow intake or some of these surveys, like, do you recommend trying everything at once or just picking a couple things? Like how did you do it?
How did I do it? Yeah, I started with Clio Manage. And then in San Diego, I had a colleague with me who has since become a judge, and she was like, "You have to use Clio Grow. It's awesome. You use Clio Grow." And we went to one of like the 20-minute talks on Clio Grow, and I was like, "Okay, I'm sold." Like on the automated email, the templates, getting signatures on representation agreements, electronic signatures, the calendar. Also, I'm not a big fan of like letting people put stuff on my calendar. So I really haven't fully adopted that. But so I started with Manage and then I went to Grow, and that's kind of where I've been living and, Grow and Manage. And it's been, for my practice, it's like the perfect sweet spot, but like all this, like we were talking about earlier, like the AI, Clio Work, Clio Draft is a draft.
Okay.
I'm like, I want to just like test those things out right away because I think it could be a huge game changer for my practice.
Great. And they are available. And then Amy, what was top of mind for you? And then do you have any recommendations for this group on customer experience?
So we started with Clio Manage also, and then we added Grow. We just added Duo, I think at the beginning of the month, which is really nice. It's the tasks that come up on the top of your screen or the matters. It gives you should really look at these files. Gives me kind of a little bit of a heads up. We also do Clio Draft. I'm really excited on Clio Draft. The templates were hard to get started. We only have one practice in the area in there, and it's estate planning. I'm really excited to get some of the other practice areas because it sounds like it'll help create those templates for us and then help us fill them. So I really want to get in there and play. This last 2 months, I got to be part of a project testing of AI billing, and that is just awesome. I have a lot of fun with AI billing. The first one happened over Labor Day weekend. I thought I would have to do billing the whole weekend, and it actually created the invoices for me, sent them out to the attorneys for the review, and it was just a couple hours versus the whole weekend. And I'm really excited for that to come all the way out. And if they keep doing it with the stages that they're talking, it's going to be exciting.
That's great. Well, we are super excited about it. I know not everyone is in the AI billing, but I think it's really exciting. So thank you both for your time here. It was great discussion here. I think I've taken away 3 different things from discussion with you today. I think number one, I really like the way on how you've crafted a really efficient sort of client intake that recognizes that first impressions really matter with customers, and you have a high touch throughout there. Second is you both use many different channels for communication, but the common thing is you're communicating in the preferred channel of your customers, and you're doing that consistently, whether it's text or the Clio for Clients portal or something else. And the third, which I love, is both of you have a really strong customer experience, what we call close the loop process, where you're taking the feedback back from the customers, and you're also building your own referral network by basically like integrating the NPS survey and with Clio Grow, and you're doing getting recommendations and referrals from those. So amazing sort of end-to-end treatment of the client experience, and love the stories that you shared from Pumpkin Pie and how you've got fun customers calling you for billing and back office. So thank you both for joining us for the panel, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.